Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and we've been getting a lot of 9.2 PTR patch updates, and if you'd like to stay up to date with those, then make sure you hit the subscribe button because I do my best to bring those to you in real time as they're happening, so you won't miss a beat. But with that news in mind, it does mean that possibly this PvP season will be coming to a close soon. So if you're looking to push towards some of these high-end rewards, mounts, and limited edition transmogs and all around just limited edition stuff, then you may want to be going after what's going to give you the best odds of achieving that, or what is looking like is the concrete meta at the moment, which is why I have constructed this tier list. This will be a competitive 3v3 melee DPS tier list, ranking all of the melee DPS on how competitive they are, how likely they are to kind of reach their potential and push to the top of the ladder. So this type of tier list is going to be a little bit more brutal. I think that all of these specializations are capable of achieving gladiator within the game. This is more or less to go beyond that, a level beyond, and try and ascend, where they start to lose out on things that other specs have that make them special and unique and desirable, is one of the main reasons why some of these specs are held back. But let's just get started. We've got the Arms Warrior. This is a really easy one. This one has just been at the top for a while, and it does not seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon. It has synergy with basically everything in the game. Melee cleave, caster melee healer. It's just a really good spec all around. It has insane durability, great utility for its team. With the unpruning of Shadowlands, it was one of the best received specs of that unpruning. It's an amazing spec, super fun to play, and performs phenomenally. You will be highly desirable on this spec and increase your likelihood of pushing very high rating if you choose to play it, which is why it's on the S tier. Assassination Rogue. As Assassination Rogue, you have options like Rogue Mage Priest, and you also have some options that are starting to pop up like Rogue Warlock. I'm a little bit still questioning whether or not Rogue Warlock will be able to go the distance all the way up the ladder, but Rogue Mage most certainly. I think that you actually do fall a bit behind Subtlety in terms of your overall competitive edge. Subtlety just always has the chance to win in any go, whereas Assassination is pretty restricted to Vendetta, and if you don't have it, your likelihood of winning is going to be in dampening, which as the game continues to go on longer and longer, the odds of your healer running out of mana go higher and higher. So for me, it kind of holds it back slightly. I would put it at the A tier at the moment, just because I think it's easier to counter. It's a little bit more predictable than the Subtlety version of the Rogue. Now, Enhancement Shaman. Pretty much you're only seeing one composition played with Enhancement Shaman, and it's pretty much one composition the entire expansion, which is Arms Warrior, Enhancement Shaman, and Healer. While you can play this, there are a lot of cleaves that can kind of out-cleave you, and there are a lot of double casters now with Frost Mage that can really just prevent you from moving your character around. I think that it's a solid spec at the moment. It fits into the meta well because you have insane burst damage, one-shot pressure, amazing off-healing and utility. You're receiving some pretty big buffs for 9.2. That might actually be the time to switch back to it, but this is a 9.1.5 list. And for me, I think it falls about middle of the pack, where it's a solid spec, has a good comp, but with the way that the meta is evolving and shifting, I think the limited mobility nature of the spec, its weaknesses to things like Rogue Mage, and Rogue Mage being so prevalent, and it's kind of getting smashed in by the other melee cleaves, holds it back. Now, this isn't to say that you couldn't go all the way with any of these specs if you really wanted to. I'm just trying to assess the odds, right? The odds of potential success. If you've been playing Enhancement Shaman for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, and you're running that turbo, then you're probably going to do fine on it. But if you're coming into the game picking these specs up and you want to know it's going to be like a solid kind of like short-term payoff investment, then I think Enhancement Shaman will be about middle of the pack. Now for Feral Druid, we have the Jungle Cleave is the kind of the main forefront composition at the moment. For Feral, it has some flexibility to play with other specializations, with casters, particularly like Warlocks. But I think that this is actually an S tier specialization because it doesn't have the mobility limitations of Enhancement Shaman, has the same off-healing capability without the drawback of running out of mana, and has spammable CC through Cyclone, amazing damage, amazing survivability, amazing team utility. Like it completely slots right into what the meta is of the game at the moment, which is why I think if you were to invest in Feral Druid, that it would be a wise investment to try and climb the ladder competitively. Now, Frost Death Knight, this specialization I'm starting to see a little bit more, particularly with Warrior Frost Death Knight, with the Kyrian Spear of Bastion Warrior, pinning targets down. It's a very hard composition to kill when paired with a Resto Druid. It's durable, can drag fights out, and has possibility to win. But I think at the top end of the ladder, you're going to start to have some problems. Again, with this double caster meta starting to become solidified, with Frost Mages becoming more prevalent, Demo Warlocks of the like, I think you're going to start to notice a problem. Also, your survivability through kind of this amazing Ret Paladin burst one-shot damage might hold you back a bit. I don't know if I want to be too cruel to this spec, because I think much like Enhancement Shaman, it has one comp that actually is doing really well. It has the same kind of problems where limited mobility, maybe a bit better self-sustain, but you can't help your allies nearly as much. It's probably about a mid-tier at the moment for me. People are making it work. I see it, but it's not kind of like the cutting edge in terms of performance compared to the other specs. Now, Fury Warrior, this is one where I was drawing a lot of questions. Is it going to be able to work? Is it going to become a meta spec? I think for me, there's just no reason to bring a Fury Warrior if you can be arms, or if you can literally be any melee DPS in the game. There's just nothing unique or special about it that's like, I'm bringing the Fury Warrior for this reason at the moment in 9.1.5. They have one honor talent, which the name is escaping me at the moment, where your Rampage stacks up a very strong Mortal Strike effect. But outside of that, you're very squishy comparatively to the Arms Warrior. You're going to get isolated. You're going to get bursted. You're going to get kited a lot. There are a couple cheesy meme stuff that I've seen coming through with Fury Warrior. I've yet to see anyone like really hard dedicate to it though. But I think that's for a reason. So for me, I think it's coming in at the bottom of the barrel here at the moment. While it did receive improvements, it's a really good, feels good spec competitively when you're pushing towards the top 0.1%. I think there's a reason why we don't see it. Havoc Demon Hunter. This is actually a spec that's on the rise at the moment, on the tear. A lot of Demon Hunters are now going Necro Lord. It's providing them a tremendous amount of durability, a tremendous amount of sustain damage, and they're running things like Warrior Demon Hunter, Boomkin Demon Hunter, and I actually think that it's jumped up the ranks a lot if you switch over to the Necro Lord Covenant. I'm a little bit saddened to say that because I really love pressing the hunt, but the main drawback of the Demon Hunter was survivability, and now you really don't have that problem. So for me, I actually think that Demon Hunter is A tier, maybe potentially pushing higher. At this point, I feel pretty solid putting it into A tier. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out, but coming to 9.2, it could even be better as the Necrolord's Covenants, but one to keep an eye on. You may have been surprised by that one's ranking. Outlaw Rogue, again, much like Fury Warrior, not really any special reason to bring it other than the reduced cooldown blind, but even that doesn't seem like it's enough, which is crazy, right? Because you would think, getting someone's trinket for free and then blinding them 30 seconds early just lets you win the game. But I guess it really doesn't. In 2v2, we see a lot more Outlaw Rogue, but in 3v3 competitive, I think much like the Fury, we can probably put it ahead of Fury. Fury's probably the last one because you can play Rogue Mage if you really wanted to try and succeed with this spec, but I would say it's an underdog. D tier is underdog. Not really anything special about them that's giving them sort of any edge over any other specialization at the moment. It's kind of lacking. Its damage is, again, kind of predictable like Vendetta during its cooldowns, and not really anything outside of that. It's just really not special at the moment to have a competitive edge. Now, Ret Paladin, this one is very easy. It has a tremendous amount of sustained damage, a tremendous amount of support for its team and itself. You're going to compete with healing against healers. You're going to absolutely erase people. It fits and slots perfectly into the meta, and it has for some time now. You have a little bit of Covenant flexibility. This spec is good at all brackets, low, mid, high. This is a really good spec to invest in my mind, especially if you want to be a carry where you're kind of paying attention to your team and trying to end the game. This specialization is just absolutely smashing at the moment. Subtlety Rogue. Now, you may be restricted to only one composition that is going to be phenomenal, which in my mind is the Holy Priest Fire Mage Subtlety Rogue. This composition allows you access to instant crowd control on 3 targets, with each person having personal responsibility, so no one has to worry about moving around and stunning 2 targets. Priest stuns somebody, Mage DB someone, Rogue stuns someone. No one has to overextend or compromise their positioning. It's a very easy setup to execute on, and it's very effective. And because of that, I would almost argue that Rogue Mage could be one of the best compositions in the game at the moment. Because of that, for me, I think it comes in the S tier competitively. Maybe we can put it a little bit behind. It's going to require, specific strategies to be able to win, whereas these other specs, sometimes you can kind of just zug around and find your victories. But once you have those strategies for Subtlety Rogue, you're going to be an absolute monster. Survival Hunter. Now, this isn't even just that survival is necessarily a bad spec at the moment. I actually think it's a really good spec, a solid spec, and a fun spec to play. But competitively, I think players are more often than not going to favor Beast Mastery for jungle, Marksman for the other options like the double range DPS blasters. Like I'm seeing Mage Hunter, even Warlock Hunter sometimes. Survival can definitely succeed in the jungle cleave composition as a substitute for Beast Mastery, but again, you're a substitute. So for me, I think competitively, it's probably the best, or maybe tied with Enhancement Shaman on the mid tier at the moment, because you're really not going to see it a lot just because BM is so much easier to pull off, much less risk to play. And if there's a lot of these double casters snaring you, preventing you from moving around the map, you might begin to struggle. Unholy Death Knight, this is another one that was really kind of rising up. I think it's in a lot better of a spot than it was before, but the game is just not about sustained damage. It's about burst damage. Unholy brings some pretty decent burst damage, but it's very predictable. It's highly visual, and it takes a lot of globals to set up, so you can see it coming, and then you can counter it. So I think that holds it back. Its personal survivability is all right, not fantastic. I think it actually comes in about C, because the Frost Death Knight burst damage, I think, is exceedingly higher. You can play things like Shadow Priest Death Knight. I've seen that once in a while. I'm curious to see if any Demon Hunter Death Knights come into the mix, but your synergies with arms is much better as Frost than it is as Unholy. Really only seen the Unholy Shadow Priest Shaman composition working, and even that, the players that play it, I haven't seen them play it in some time, although I'm sure they will, because I think that the Death Knight players are their friends. But you're probably gonna struggle to find groups as this spec at the moment if your main goal is like super competitive, want to be really try hard and push to the top of the ladder at the moment. Now, Windwalker Monk. This is also a very easy lock-in for me. Much like the Subtlety Rogue, you're going to be working around your burst damage and your cooldowns, your Storm, Earth, and Fire, your Zwen, and your Mark procs for your Spinning Crane Kick. You're going to need to know strategically those moments, but once you know how to set up a Paralyzed Leg Sweep and use those cooldowns or use those procs, you're obviously going to knock people out of the park. Your survivability is a little bit more limited than the Feral Druid or the Arms Warrior, which is why I'm putting it towards actually the end of the list. But you make up for that survivability through mobility. You can just escape any of those moments, but you will need awareness to know when to escape. So maybe a little bit more challenging. So I think I feel a little bit more fair. Maybe putting it here on the S tier overall. In the hands of the best player, though, it might even be better than all of them. Because if you're aware of every single situation, you'll just make it impossible to die. You have really good cooldowns to trade, but some of them can be cracked, like Touch of Karma can be broken through, so you need to be careful of that. But you can run things like the Windwalker Fire Mage. That's still a very prevalent composition. You could try and help out some of your DK buddies by running the Windwalker DK. I see that popping up every once in a while. You've got Boomy Windwalker, which is a really good composition right now for just zapping people out of the arena. And I've even seen a little bit of Windwalker Ellie, but honestly not too much. It's pretty flexible overall, and I would say that it is one of the most competitive specs in the game at the moment. But this is my list for the 9.1.5 melee DPS competitively. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Am I off base with my current rankings? Do you think anything is maybe too harsh? Anything's a little bit too good? Let me know in the comments down below. But this is where my current thoughts on the specialization sit right now in the ladder. And again, this purpose of this channel is to be a resource for you to enhance your experience with World of Warcraft and give you the best odds of success and show you some fun stuff to play in the game. Just because some of these specs might have got a lower ranking, like Unholy DK in particular, doesn't mean that it isn't also a fun spec. It's just I think the meta isn't suited to it at the moment. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.